Learn English through stories. G10. Adapted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Contents: 1. The missing mail. 2. The history of the postal system, Great Britain. 3. Grammar page, present perfect continuous and simple. 1. The missing mail. Though his round covered only Vinayak Mudali Street and its 4 parallel roads, it took him nearly 6 hours before he finished his round and returned to the head office in Market Road to deliver accounts. He allowed himself to get mixed up with the fortunes of the persons to whom he was carrying letters. At number 13 Kabir Street lived the man who had come halfway up the road to ask for a letter for so many years now. Thana had seen him as a youngster and had watched him day by day graying on the platform, sitting there and hoping for a big prize to come his way through solving crossword puzzles. No prize yet, he announced to him every day, but don't be disheartened. Your interest has been delayed this month somehow, he said to another. Your son at Hyderabad has written again, madam. How many children has he got now? I did not know that you had applied for this Madras job. You haven't cared to tell me. It doesn't matter. When I bring you your appointment order, you must feed me with coconut sweet noodles. And at each of these places, he stopped for nearly half an hour. Especially if anyone received money orders, he just settled down quite nicely, with his bags and bundles spread about him, and would not rise till he gathered an idea of how and where every rupee was going. If it was a hot day, he sometimes asked for a tumbler of buttermilk and sat down to enjoy it. Everybody liked him on his beat. He was a part and parcel of their existence, their hopes, aspirations, and activities. Of all his contacts, the one with which he was most intimately bound up was number 10, Vinayak Mudali Street. Raman was a senior clerk in the Revenue Division office, and Thana had carried letters to that address for over a generation now. His earliest association with Raman was years and years ago. Raman's wife was away in the village. A card arrived for Raman. Thana, as was his custom, glanced through it at the sorting table itself, and the moment they were ready to start out, went straight to Vinayak Mudali Street, and though in the ordinary course over 150 addresses preceded it. He went straight to Raman's house, knocked on the door and shouted, "Postman, sir, postman." When Raman opened it, he said, "Give me a handful of sugar before I give you this card." Happy father. After all these years of prayers. Don't complain that it is a daughter. Daughters are God's gift, you know, Kamakshi. Lovely name. Kamakshi, he addressed the tall, bashful girl years later. Get your photo ready. So shy. Here is your grandfather's card asking for your photo. Why should he want it, unless it be? The old gentleman writes rather frequently now, doesn't he, sir? He asked Raman as he handed him his letter and waited for him to open the envelope and go through its contents. Raman looked worried after reading it. The postman asked, I hope it's good news? He leaned against the veranda pillar, with a stack of undelivered letters still under his arm. Raman said, my father-in-law thinks I am not sufficiently active in finding a husband for my daughter. He has tried 1 or 2 places and failed. He thinks I am very indifferent. Elderly people have their own anxieties and worries, the postman replied. The trouble is, said Raman, that he has set apart 5,000 rupees for this girl's marriage and is worrying me to find a husband for her immediately. But money is not everything. No, no, echoed the postman, unless the destined hour is at hand, you are in a private hospital waiting for an operation. Day after day for months Thana delivered the letters and waited to be told the news. Same old news, Thana. Horoscopes do not agree. They are demanding too much. Evidently, they do not approve of her appearance. She looks like a queen, unless one is totally blind, the postman retorted angrily. The season would be closing, with only 3 more auspicious dates, the last being May 20. The girl would be 17 in a few days. The reminders from her grandfather were becoming fiercer. Raman had exhausted all the possibilities and had drawn a blank everywhere. He looked helpless and miserable. Postman, he said, I don't think there's a son-in-law for me anywhere. Oh, don't utter inauspicious words, sir, the postman said. When God wills it. He reflected for a while and said, there is a boy in Delhi earning 200 rupees a month. Mukunda of Temple Street was after him. Mukunda, and you are of the same subcaste, I believe. Yes. They have been negotiating for months now. Over 100 letters have passed between them already. But I know they are definitely breaking off. It is over some money question. They have written their last message on a postcard, and it has infuriated these people all the more, as if postcards were an instrument of insult. I have known most important communications being written even on picture postcards. When Rojappa went to America 2 years ago, he used to write to his sons every week on picture postcards. After this digression, he came back to the point. I will ask Mukunda to give me the horoscope. Let us see. The next day he brought the horoscope with him. The boy's parents are also in Delhi, so you can write to them immediately. No time to waste now. A ray of hope touched Raman's family. I have still 100 letters to deliver, but I came here first because I saw this Delhi postmark. Open it and tell me what they have written, said Thana. He trembled with suspense. How prompt these people are. So they approve of the photo. Who wouldn't? A letter every day. I might as well apply for leave till Kamakshi's marriage is over. Raman said another day. You are already talking as if it were coming off tomorrow. God knows how many hurdles we have to cross now. Liking a photo does not prove anything. The family council was discussing an important question, whether Raman should go to Madras, take the girl with him, and meet the party, who could come down for a day from Delhi. The family was divided over the question. Raman, his mother, and his wife, none of them had defined views on the question, but yet they opposed each other vehemently. We will be the laughingstock of the town, said Raman's wife, if we take the girl out to be shown around. What queer notions! If you stand on all these absurd, antiquated formalities, we shall never get anywhere near a marriage. It is our duty to take the girl over even to Delhi if necessary. It is your pleasure then. You can do what you please. Why consult me? Tempers were at their worst, and no progress seemed possible. The postman had gotten into the habit of dropping in at the end of his day's work and joining in the council. I am a third party. Listen to me, he said. Sir, please. Take the train to Madras immediately. What you cannot achieve by a year's correspondence you can do in an hour's meeting. Here is a letter from Madras, madam. I am sure it is from your husband. What is the news? He handed the envelope to Raman's wife, and she took it in to read. He said, I have some registered letters for those last houses. I will finish my round and come back. He returned as promised. Have they met, madam? Yes, Kamakshi's father has written that they have met the girl, and from their talk Kamakshi's father infers they are quite willing. Grand news. I will offer a coconut to our Vinayaka tonight. But the lady added, half overwhelmed with happiness and half worried, there is this difficulty. We had an idea of doing it during the next month. It will be so difficult to hurry through the arrangements now, but they say that if the marriage is done it must be done on the 20th of May. If it is postponed the boy can't marry for 3 years. He is being sent away for some training. The old gentleman is as good as his word, the postman said, delivering an insurance envelope to Raman. He has given the entire amount. You can't complain about the lack of funds now. Go ahead. I'm so happy you have his approval. More than their money. We need their blessings, sir. I hope he has sent his heartiest blessings. Oh yes, replied Raman. My father-in-law seems to be very happy at this proposal. A 5,000 rupee marriage was a big affair for Malgudi. Raman, with so short a time before him and none to share the task of arrangements, became distraught. Thana placed himself at his service during all his off hours. He cut short his eloquence, advice, and exchanges in other houses. He never waited for anyone to come up and receive the letters. He just tossed them through a window or an open door with a stentorian shout, "Letters, sir." If they stopped him and asked, "What is the matter with you, in such a hurry?" Yes, leave me alone till the 20th of May. I will come and squat down in your house after that, and he was off. Raman was in great tension. He trembled with anxiety as the day approached nearer. It must go on smoothly. Nothing should prove a hindrance. Do not worry, sir. It will go through happily, by God's grace. You have given them everything they wanted in cash, presents, and style. They are good people. It is not about that. It is the very last date of the year. If for some reason some obstruction comes up, it is all finished forever. The boy goes away for 3 years. I don't think either of us would be prepared to bind ourselves to wait for 3 years. It was 4 hours past the Martam, auspicious time on the day of the wedding. A quiet had descended on the gathering. The young smart bridegroom from Delhi was seated in a chair under the pandal. The fragrance of sandals, flowers, and holy smoke hung about the air. People were sitting around the bridegroom talking. Thana appeared at the gate loaded with letters. Some young men ran up to him demanding, "Postman, letters." He held them off. "Get back. I know to whom to deliver." He walked over to the bridegroom and held up to him a bundle of letters very respectfully. "These are all greetings and blessings from well-wishers, I believe, sir, and my own go with every one of them." He seemed very proud of performing this task and looked very serious. The bridegroom looked up at him with an amused smile and muttered, "Thanks, we are all very proud to have your distinguished self as a son-in-law of this house. I have known that child, Kamakshi, ever since she was a day old, and I always knew she would get a distinguished husband," added the postman, and brought his palms together in a salute, and moved into the house to deliver other letters and to refresh himself in the kitchen with tiffin and coffee. 10 days later he knocked on the door and with a grin handed Kamakshi her first letter. "Ah, scented envelope. I knew it was coming when the mail van was 3 stations away. I have seen hundreds like this. Take it from me. Before he has written the 10th letter he will command you to pack up and join him, and you will grow a couple of wings and fly away that very day and forget forever Thana and this street, isn't it so?" Kamakshi blushed, snatched the letter from his hands and ran in to read it. He said, turning away, "I don't think there is any use waiting for you to finish the letter and tell me its contents." On a holiday, when he was sure Raman would be at home, Thana knocked on the door and handed him a card. I cried, "Raman." "Bad news, Thana. My uncle, my father's brother, is very ill in Salem, and they want me to start immediately." "I'm very sorry to hear it, sir," said Thana, and handed him a telegram. "Here's another." Raman cried, "A telegram." He glanced at it and screamed, "Oh, he is dead." He sat down on the platform, unable to stand the shock. Thana looked equally miserable. Raman rallied, gathered himself up, and turned to go in. Thana said, "One moment, sir. I have a confession to make. See the date on the card. May the 19th, nearly 15 days ago." "Yes, sir," and the telegram followed next day. That is, on the day of the marriage. I was unhappy to see it. But what has happened, I said to myself, and kept it away, fearing that it might interfere with the wedding. Raman glared at the postman and said, "I would not have cared to go through the marriage when he was dying." The postman stood with bowed head and mumbled, "You can complain if you like, sir. They will dismiss me. It is a serious offense." He turned and descended the steps and went down the street on his rounds. Raman watched him dully for a while and shouted, "Postman!" Thana turned round. Raman cried, "Don't think that I intend to complain. I am only sorry you have done this." "I understand your feelings, sir," replied the postman, disappearing around a bend. Vocabulary. 1. Tumbler, a glass. 2. Part and parcel, an essential part, a description of what is going to happen to you based on the position of the stars and planets at the time of your birth, of something. 3. Bashful, shy or self-conscious. 4. Indifferent, uninterested or uncaring. 5. Horoscopes, Kundli or Tua, a description of what is going to happen to you based on the position of the stars and planets at the time of your birth. 6. Draw a blank, to be unsuccessful in every attempt. 7. Come off. If something comes off, it is successful or effective. 8. Vehemently, forcefully, in a way that shows very strong feelings, especially anger. 9. Laughingstock, a joke. When you become a laughingstock, everybody laughs at you. 10. Queer notions, a strange idea. 11. Antiquated, old-fashioned. 12. Stentorian, very loud. 13. Hold somebody off, keep somebody at a distance. 14. Confession. You make a confession when you admit that you are guilty of something. 2. The history of the postal system, Great Britain. The post office is experiencing its busiest time of the year, with cards and parcels flooding through the system throughout December, right up to Christmas. In fact, an amazing 1.7 billion Christmas cards and 130 million parcels containing gifts are sent each year in Great Britain. The post office is a national institution in the UK, with early origins dating back to the 16th century during the reign of King Henry VII, who first established a master of the posts in 1516. The position later became the Postmaster General, a role which continued for more than 450 years until it was finally abolished in 1969. Early years. In the early years, the postal service wasn't available to ordinary people and was rather the privilege of the upper classes. However, in 1635, King Charles I made it available to all. Unlike the modern system, the postage costs were paid by the recipient and not the sender. In 1654, military and political leader Oliver Cromwell granted a monopoly to the Office of Postage over the postal delivery services in England. 3 years later, fixed postal rates were launched. The General Post Office was established by Charles II in 1660, marking the official launch of the service in England. This was followed by the introduction of the postage date stamp in 1661 and the appointment of the first Postmaster General in the same year. Mail coaches began operating between London and Bristol in 1784. The first coaches resembled ordinary family carriages, but were easily recognized by their post office livery. Self-adhesive stamps. Uniformed postmen were employed for the first time in 1793, while the first mail train on the Manchester-Liverpool route appeared in 1830. The adhesive postage stamp was invented by Birmingham schoolteacher Rowland Hill in 1837. He was later knighted for his invention. Post office money orders were introduced in 1838, and 2 years later, the momentous penny black stamp, the first postage stamp with its own adhesive, was released across the nation. The same year, the penny post system enabled people to send a letter for the uniform rate of 1 penny. Pillar boxes. The first red post office pillar box appeared in Jersey in 1852, and the following year, more appeared across Britain. Market Drayton and Shrewsbury were the locations of the first wall post boxes in 1857. Telegraphs were introduced in 1870, and the same year, the half-a-penny rate was introduced for sending postcards, and new laws banned the sending of obscene and indecent literature through the post. The first postmen on bicycles appeared on our streets in 1880, and the following year, postal orders were introduced. The parcel post was launched in 1883. 20th century. The early 20th century saw some major changes. The Wireless Telegraphy Act 1904 was passed as a result of the development of radio links for sending telegraphs, and the General Post Office licensed all senders and receivers. The Post Office launched its national telephone system in 1912. Offering a cheaper postage rate for a slower delivery service, the second-class stamp was introduced in 1968, and in the same year, the National Giro Bank was born. 1 year later, the Post Office Act 1969 saw the General Post Office become a nationalized industry, rather than a government department. Postcodes. Everyone uses postcodes today without giving them a second thought. but when they were first introduced across Britain in 1974 to make mail sorting easier, they were an innovative invention. The 80s saw the Postal Service's telecommunications arm branch off to form British Telecom in 1981. The remainder of the business was rebranded as the Post Office. Further divisions were created in 1986. The parcel delivery, letter delivery, and post office arms of the service were split into separate businesses under the Post Office Group umbrella. 3. Grammar page.